the issue of breaking up Apple, right? That's not where the department is going right now, but right, what they're asking the court to do is essentially order Apple to allow some of these apps and some of these other companies to be able to integrate. We've all been on text messages with our family members, right? The dreaded green logo.
Oh my God.
Right.
Blue versus green.
Right, and certain things are just, right, exactly. And so that's the kind of thing that Apple could really, according to the Justice Department, readily fix, but they're not doing it.
Richard, so Merrick Garland kind of spins Apple's advertising against them, saying, you know, there's an app for that. Well, there's a law against monopolies. What would Apple's App Store look like? How impactful could this lawsuit ultimately be for their finances?
I think with all these antitrust lawsuits, the thing you have to bear in mind, where you start and where you finish are two very different things. And that's the big risk for Apple here, because there are those of us of a certain age who will remember AT&T, who remembers Microsoft, who remembers all the big antitrust litigation that the DOJ went against. And of course, the companies eventually either got broken up or had to give vast amounts of ground. And that's likely to happen here in some shape or form. I'm in Brussels tonight, and interestingly, the building behind me, the Berlaymont, which is the headquarters of the European Commission, they found a different way to go after Apple. They basically changed the laws and changed the rules. So, for example, they said the new law is you have to allow third-party access to apps. When it came to the charger, they basically made the law that said you have to have USB-C as your charger, despite all these. So the US very much going in one particular direction, the litigation, DOJ. Europe now just has found that to be not so successful. They just changed the rules, changed the law.
So it works a little bit different than, you know, Richard just mentioned, and I remember starting my career as a tech reporter covering AT&T, covering Microsoft. The DOJ, right, the antitrust chief even saying that Apple actually benefited from that landmark Microsoft rule.
Right, they did, and there's a lot of companies that we now know that are now in dominant positions that started out in a much more inferior and smaller position, right? The underdogs against the big behemoth Microsoft that are now doing the same thing that the Justice Department at the time said Microsoft was doing, and so it is a turnabout. One of the funniest things, you know, if you see what Apple's statement was today, you read a part of it, Boris. They mentioned that you know people don't want the government designing their technology, right? But that's what Richard just talked about, right? The EU essentially ordered Apple and everybody to get on the same page about the chargers because we now want to have to carry multiple types of chargers, right? And everybody complained about it, but eventually they did it, and now we're all benefiting from that change.
There's a new one every 3 years. That's the problem. Like, it's hard to hook stuff up that you owned before to the new phone.
Right.
Richard, markets, how are they doing in response to this lawsuit? I saw earlier that Apple's stock price had taken a bit of a dip. Is that a good buying opportunity?
Oh, that's a great question. Really, that would require me to interpret whether or not how this case is likely to end. If you tell me, listen, look at the numbers first. You led me into that trap. Look into the numbers. Apple is down some 4% today in a market that is generally much higher. So it is being clobbered by investors. There will be those Appleholics that will say, yeah, this is a buying opportunity in the long run. Apple has been one of those most valuable companies. The stock price has been way up there. I'm not going to get involved in that. I'm just going to tell you, expect rocky roads for Apple whilst we get some clarity on exactly how dangerous this is for the company.